It is 10 o'clock on the west coast of the United States. That would be 10 o'clock in the evening. It is 0500 GMT. We're coming on an hour earlier just because I'm getting old and I feel like I want to go to bed sooner. No, actually, I want to stay up late and enjoy my evening more. And I still want to do this show. So I'm basically going to start doing it from 10 to 11 p.m. It has struck me, a couple of people have said that they can't watch because it's too late. Other people, here's the thing, people do watch. Many people seem to watch on tape delay. In other words, the YouTube saved video of the live broadcast. But if you want to join me live, 10 o'clock on the West Coast in the evening, 10 p.m. West Coast time, that would be 1 a.m. East Coast time. That is also 0500 GMT. And thank you for being here. cBasAfterDark. Happy Easter, everyone. It is Easter evening, and as I'm trying to sort of structure this show a little bit more, I'm realizing that we're going to do kind of a news Sunday. Here's what I'm picturing. News Sunday, where I just actually broadcast news as best to my ability from my 20 years as a broadcaster. I do have a bit of history doing newscasts and so forth, and structuring them and reporting news and interviewing people and so on. So we'll try to do that on Sunday nights. Monday night, I like Nerd News Monday. Nerd News is one of my favorite things to sort of special features to report, both when I had my own radio show and when I was a correspondent for the Gil Gross show in San Francisco. So we'll do News Sunday, Nerd News Monday, Game Show Tuesday, which is something I've been doing for weeks and weeks now. Since the show really started, Tuesday was kind of my game show day, just to freaking do nothing more than play old reruns of game shows. It's pretty badass. Media Watch Wednesday is something I kind of kicked off last week. Now, if you watched Media Watch Wednesday live on the air, it was good for you because it turns out something I played is copyrighted. And when something is copyrighted, the replay video gets banned from YouTube. Now, it did not get me shut down. If you play certain kinds of copyrighted things, certain songs that are known to be copyrighted by the algorithms that present Google Plus Hangouts and so on, you can get your broadcast shut down. I have had a couple of things where it warns you ahead of time. If you don't stop playing this audio or whatever you're playing, you're going to get shut down because this is copyrighted shit. That was a ding. I don't know what that ding is. Oh, yes. I've just been texted by a friend of mine. So give me a moment. But anyway, so the last Media Watch Wednesday that I did last Wednesday was a really good kind of broadcast. And sadly, I still have the broadcast. I think I can even download it from YouTube, but it has been banned from YouTube, so you cannot access it. But it was really good because what I was talking about was news, journalism, and specifically that Conan O'Brien thing where he plays 15 newscasters or 20 newscasters all reading the exact same line of text word for word. They call it Newscasters Agree on the Conan O'Brien show. It is not, my intention to rip off Conan O'Brien, but rather to explain why that happens. I've seen it brought up in the Trekkie chat room. I've seen other people say this is proof of the media conspiracy, to brainwash us, that all the newscasters say the same thing. That's bullshit. It is not the media conspiracy to brainwash people. That is the reason why 20 newscasters on the Conan O'Brien show all read the exact same line of text word for word. As the point I made last Wednesday, and I will continue to make it again, is it is either on one hand laziness, on the other hand probably most likely producers and news people being spread too thin and subscribing to and using these services that provide not only recorded video packages for them to play on the news, but also the introduction to those packages. Every single newscaster you saw seeing the same thing on the Conan O'Brien show was reading a pre-written piece of copy, and it was not written by an Illuminati somewhere that is trying to get everybody on the same page no matter what channel you're watching. No. It is a suggested introduction to a tape that they all ended up playing right after that those words were uttered. And it is laziness and being spread too thin, essentially. It is shoddy journalism, no doubt about it. Lazy ass motherfuckers who don't know that they need to go ahead and rewrite very bad copy. That's the other thing, is usually that copy that is the suggested intro is pretty bad. So that was the video that got blocked on YouTube that I did last week was actually really good. And it kills me that it was blocked. And the reason it was blocked, Conan O'Brien has that shit copyrighted. So I'm going to try and find ways of bringing that thing to you again. Media Watch Wednesday. So again, if you're just joining me, News Sunday, Nerd News Monday, which is my favorite thing, Game Show Tuesday, Media Watch Wednesday, and then Thursday, I don't know, kind of a fucking free-for-all. Those are the days I like to do the the weird news, the odd news. I saw something about a vagina workout instrument. It did not appear to be a April Fool's gag. This appeared to be an actual instrument to, I don't have a vagina, but somehow work out or exercise the muscles in your vagina. Tell me that's not a great fucking news story to wrap up the week with. Okay, what I want to start with, here's what we'll talk about tonight. John Oliver and Edward Snowden. If you know who John Oliver is, the HBO show that is called, say it, Last Week Tonight. It's a comedy show, similar to The Daily Show. It is meant to be news satire, not news straight up. But my friend Yahweh has said it in the Trekkie chat, and he's absolutely right. John Oliver is one of America's great journalists. I don't believe he said exactly that, Yahweh. I mean, I believe he said that, some of the best examples of modern journalism come from Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. And in that is what he said. And in that, he's absolutely right, because holy fucking shit, the stuff we saw tonight was journalistic and important and relevant and understandable and digestible and hilarious all at the same time. It was fucking brilliant. And I cannot overstate this. Like, if you happen to catch, and I mean, I said to Dale, one of the other Trekkie chatters, this stuff is very often, they're very good about uploading that stuff to YouTube. So you will probably have a chance to see it. Now, I won't be able to play it here because it's copyrighted, and it'll either get the live cast shut down or it will get the YouTube rebroadcast banned in all countries worldwide, like what happened last Wednesday. But it's going to be badass, and it's going to be, it's perhaps the greatest journalism. He went to Russia. John Oliver went from New York City to Russia to interview Edward Snowden, and they did a whole sort of intro to it where the first hour, John Oliver's sitting around opposite an empty chair going, I don't think he's going to show up. Why would he? And he's playing games, and he's saying to the KGB in the microphone above, he's like, if you're watching, please set off the fire alarm to let us know he's not coming. It is really hilarious. And then, son of a bitch, he shows up an hour late. I don't know if they sort of did that hour so that they could make these jokes, and that would be really funny. If they did, that's comedy genius. If not, they used that hour that they sort of wasted very, very well, comedy purposes. But then they brought in Edward Snowden, and they played, they sort of talked to him about, did you miss your country, and so on and so on. But the really telling part was they couldn't get people to understand the whole Citizen4 thing. I watched Citizen4, the documentary about Edward Snowden on HBO, and it was good. It was a very good, solid documentary film, but the thing about it is it's almost incomprehensible. I'm a nerd, okay? I'm not a hacker. I'm not a super nerd, but I'm a nerd, okay? I'm a Trekkie. I'm a technology guy. I've been a nerd, tech journalist for a long time, and I have a certain appreciation and understanding for the complexity of those issues that I mean, I don't want to pat myself on the back. I was never a computer programmer by trade, but I'll say that I feel like many people do not understand such things. And I think that's fair to say. I'm not calling most people stupid. Many people are stupid. Many people aren't. But a lot of people don't have an appreciation for the real intricate devil in the details kind of shit of the technology story. Certainly when it comes to Edward Snowden and the NSA and what they're collecting and why they're collecting it and what they're doing with it and how long they can keep it and what they're using it for and all of those questions, which are super important. But, they did interviews in Times Square with random people, many of whom who did not know Edward Snowden's name at all, many of whom were conflating him with Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks guy, who did, as John Oliver said, kind of did shit in a much less responsible way, just released everything and to the world. And what Snowden did was not that. He worked with a series of journalists, honest to God, real journalists who were believed in their work and were not based in the U.S. I think for the most part. And but again, that movie was almost incomprehensible. I watched it with my mom, and my mom was kind of zoned out and glazed over. And my mom was a molecular geneticist for a long time. My mom was a scientist, honest to God, and still did not really have, I mean, she's retired now, but it's not like she's mentally addled or anything like that. She's a smart lady, and, those tech issues, when they get 2 or 3 minutes in, just cause people to glaze the fuck over, right? The John Oliver piece did not do that, because what the John Oliver piece did was focus on penis pictures of your dick that you send to a girl, or whatever the hell. And the people they mentioned in Times Square that I mentioned that they interviewed in Times Square, one of whom actually said, yes, I have taken a picture of my dick and sent it across the internet. And they used the dick pictures, to kind of illustrate in fucking crystal clear terms, exactly how if you send it to someone using Gmail, the Gmail servers route it outside of the country and back in for whatever reason at whatever point. And because even though it's sent domestically from you in Florida to you in San Francisco, it still goes out of the country. And when it goes out of the country, that catches it in the NSA database. And all of a sudden, all of these issues become crystal clear because it's about a photo of your dick. And holy fucking shit, like that's what I'm talking about, is John Oliver found a way to make this ingestible and digestible and relevant and important and hilarious, all the while making a very, very serious point. The point being, June 1st, I think it is, June 1st or July 1st. I get the J months mixed up, but that is when the part of the whole Patriot Act expires. And do we want to renew it or not, and why? And are these programs doing any good? And are these programs that are domestic spying doing any good? Are the foreign spying doing any good? And I'm sorry, I'm not going to spend an hour talking about this, but so help me God, if you do nothing else this week and you're within the sound of my voice, either live or on tape, do yourself a favor and seek out the John Oliver interview with Edward Snowden, which will probably be posted tomorrow. The YouTube account is called Last Week Tonight, all one word, Last Week Tonight. By the way, if you want to call me, here's the number, 310-776-5869. If you want to tweet me, Sebastian Kutz. Okay, so check that out. The only reason I knew to make sure to watch it live, and something clued me in, I did not know it was Edward Snowden. I did not know it was the Patriot Act. I think this is an important topic, but the only reason I knew to watch it, specifically live on the first feed possible, was because I saw the length in the little digital guide. The length of that show was suddenly 45 minutes instead of 30. And I know John Oliver's stuff is solid fucking gold to begin with. So when he went from 30 to 45 minutes, I knew it was something weighty and meaty and interesting and funny. And so help me God, he did not disappoint. In fact, he trumped everything else I've ever seen him do. This is not Jon Stewart critiquing the president in a meaningful way. This is not, what can I say, Stephen Colbert parodying in a very meaningful way and making fun of the Republican, the conservative assholes who are obviously, bass backwards in a million ways and, using their own kind of diatribes against them. No, this is a cut above both the satire of Stephen Colbert and the actual kind of journalistic type stuff that Jon Stewart often does on The Daily Show. John Oliver is America's greatest journalist, and I absolutely stand by that statement. As a former journalist myself, I feel like I'm an expert in exactly two things. News coverage, not of all news stories, just how news is made, how news is created and sort of distributed and that kind of thing, because I did that for 20 years for my job. And Star Trek is the other thing. News and Star Trek are the two things I feel like I'm an expert in. I know shit all about anything else. So I'll wrap up that because I wanted to talk about that. That was supposed to be the tease, and I ended up going off of my John Oliver thing without. Let's talk about journalistic failure. Well, let me tease the rest of the things. Woman lands assault charge after spraying breast milk at cop. We'll talk about that. The world's oldest person dies weeks after their 117th birthday. It's almost like that oldest person in the world thing is cursed in some way. That is not original cBas joke. Someone else made that joke and I totally ripped it off. And usually I try to credit the jokes that I rip off. I think it was Jon Stewart who I'm ripping off there by saying, it's like the world's oldest person title is cursed somehow. Yeah, no shit. They're the world's oldest person. They're about to die. Harassment problems on that new Twitter Periscope dealie. The world's oldest person wanted the president to attend her birthday party. The Max Headroom thing. That's where we're going to finish off tonight. If you remember the Max Headroom Chicago broadcast hijacking situation, it's Max Headroom's 30th anniversary. I was kind of... You ever get that thing where you're home alone in the house and it's nighttime and it's quiet and it's creepy and you're just like, oh, it's kind of, you turn on the lights even though nothing is wrong and nothing is really scary even happening. That happened to me on Friday night. I don't do a show on Friday night, and I was like, wow, it's quiet, it's creepy, and nobody's making a noise. And then somebody tweeted this thing about not Max Headroom's birthday. Well, it was the Max Headroom anniversary, but for Max Headroom's anniversary, they brought up this story of the Chicago broadcast television hijacking thing from 1987, 86, 87, I think it was. And that's a brilliant story, if only because the FBI and the FCC never caught the motherfucker who did it. And we'll talk about analog broadcasting. I'm going to end with that because The past couple of nights, I've been sort of delving into it even more, and it creeps me the fuck out even to this day, because the Max Headroom mask that the person in this hack wore was creepy, and it was mildly pornographic, as it was described by the guy. He interrupted 2 TV stations in the old analog broadcast days. Somebody, with a, you know how TV stations do it. They go from their TV station up to the transmitter using a microwave signal, the studio to transmitter link, and then from the transmitter here on a high building or mountain goes out to all the TV stations. Broadcast signal, just like radio, you send your signal to the transmitter and the transmitter sends it to the radios. TV worked the same way back in the 80s. Digital broadcasting now is a whole nother animal, and I don't think such a hijack is possible in that way, in that sense. We'll talk about that. But we're going to finish with that because I feel like the last thing it'll be it'll be good to do it last, and it'll be creepy and kind of scary, and then I'll sign off mysteriously until tomorrow. Okay. Let's start with the woman in the breast milk. That seems like a fun thing to segue into. Woman, and this is from, they have a picture. I think it is from the San Francisco Chronicle. sfgate.com is the website. So let me bring it up here and share it with you on the screen. There we go. Okay. That's the sort of landing screen. Here is the site. This is not necessarily a brand new breaking news story. I sort of flagged these things for myself. This is from March 27th, so this is already like a week or so old. Assault by breast milk. Oh, this is not even in San Francisco. It was on SFGate, but it was... do they have a video? Oh, well, God. I mean, tell me we're not going to watch this video. Absolutely we are. Let's just see. I don't know if there's video of the incident or just if it's just a video news story. Doesn't seem to want to play. Okay, fine, fuck it. Assault by breast milk. Yes, an Australian woman has landed herself a charge of assaulting a police officer after allegedly squirting her breast milk at a cop. News site Perth Now. Before the incident occurred on Tuesday, 26-year-old Erica Leader had been arrested on a warrant and taken into police custody in Rockingham in Western Australia, southwest of Perth. At the police station, a female officer conducted a strip search, leaving the woman's chest bare. Okay, we're getting good. This is getting good, right? As the woman was putting back on her clothes, she allegedly used her breast to spray milk at the officer. So it was a female cop making contact with the officer's head, arms, and clothing. I assume getting the breast milk on there. Leader has been refused bail and remains in custody until her scheduled court appearance, or remained in custody until her scheduled court appearance. I wonder if there's an update to that. The Guardian notes she could face a max penalty, 18 months in jail, or $18,000 fine. You know what? Just for shits and giggles, let's go to news.google.com and see if we can look up something on breast milk assault Australia. Or anything newer than March 27th or whatever? It just says she's assault. Oh, here we go. March 30th. Perth Now. Ms. Leader was denied bail. I still don't know if that's actually really an update or March 31st. So this is now 4 days old. In opposing bail, the prosecutor told the court the woman's been recently charged with assaulting a public health worker in a hospital. She was denied bail when she appeared in court over the breast milk incident. The court heard she was in a much better state of mind and her mental health had improved since her previous court appearance. However, the magistrate said that Ms. Leader had failed to prove a necessary change in circumstance required to make bail. She's remanded in custody to appear on April the 14th. Hey, that's my birthday. So we'll have an update on her story, no doubt. When we do, I don't know what day April 14th is. Let me pull up the calendar. I mean, it's coming the fuck up here. Okay, so it's a Tuesday. So we'll be doing Game Show Tuesday on my birthday. And by the way, you're always invited to call in. Numbers on your screen. Okay. Let's do the next story here. World's oldest woman dies. I feel like that's not really a breaking news story, but I like it because they always show a picture of it. And I always picture like Willard Scott on the Today Show, right? Willard Scott's all, hey, June LaFoe here is 117. And isn't she a good looking 117 years old? It's like, good Lord. All right, so let's look at the poor, sad 117-year-old woman who died. Switching over to the internet screen here for you to be able to see it along with me here. Check it out. Newsweek.com, 117th birthday. Just a couple of weeks later, the world's oldest person dies. Yeah, there she is. I think that's a she, yes. Misao Okawa. It seems like they're very often Japanese or at least Asian. And I think I've heard people suggest that that's because of the like Asian diet or something. Maybe that's bullshit. Wednesday, she died. Misao Okawa, the oldest person. Okay, thank you, Newsweek.com. Weeks after celebrating her birthday, she died of heart failure, according to the AP. At the end, she was surrounded by her family. The AP says Gertrude Weaver of Arkansas is now the oldest person in the world, according to the Gerontology Research Group, which keeps records of supercentenarians, or people older than 110. Guinness World Records, the group that bestowed the title on Okawa, said it's still investigating her successors. Guinness says the oldest ever person was a French woman who lived to be 122 and 164 days old. Yeah, when you get to be that old, the number of days becomes also as important, how close you are to your next birthday kind of a thing. Although Okawa, the woman who just died, held the title of world's oldest person for 2 years. Guinness held a celebration, including a cake, flower, and family members in attendance. When asked by a Japanese TV station how it felt to live to 117, Okawa said, no doubt in Japanese, it seemed rather short. Her tips for living a long life and healthy life were getting enough sleep and eating sushi. She was born in 1898. So, okay, I don't like sushi, so I'm probably not going to live to know 117, but, whatever the hell. The other story I wanted to, it was sort of a double whammy when it came to the stories about the world's oldest person, because there was also a story here from the Huffington Post about, I think it might be a 116-year-old who is now the world's oldest person, who said something about wanting Obama to show up at her birthday party. You have to wonder if that will happen, or if, Gertrude Weaver, sure enough. Let's take a look at it here. You have to wonder if the president will actually do that. You kind of hope not. You kind of hope they have more important to do and will do more important shit than go to the fact that the world's oldest person birthday party. Okay. Person died Wednesday. Most likely, that's how they always phrase it, because they're not fully sure. Gertrude Weaver will celebrate her 117th birthday on July 4th, and her only wish is to have the president attend. She really wants to meet the president, said the center administrator at Silver Oaks Health and Rehab Center in Camden, Arkansas. She's voted for him twice now, and it's just her lifelong dream. Do we have a picture? There she is. Isn't she a good-looking 116? She'll turn 117 July 4th. They sent him an invitation last year. We'll send him another one this year, they say. Langley told the Huffington Post Weaver had been a resident since 2009, and every year on her birthday, they hold a big party for her, open to the community and now the world. The centenarian is still active at 116, attends church regularly. She even exercises 3 times a week in her wheelchair. She said her faith is the secret to her longevity. You don't have to follow God. Oh, no, you have to follow God. Don't follow anyone else. Be obedient and follow the laws. Don't worry about anything. I followed him for many years, and I ain't tired. All right, again, not only do I not like sushi, I don't follow God, so I have no hope of ever being the world's oldest person. And frankly, I don't want to be mean. Obviously, what an achievement, right, to make it to 100, much less 116, 117. But, God, I don't want to be that old looking, and I don't really see the point. I'd rather live really 80 really awesome years, or 60 really, really awesome years, rather than 116. If I have to eat only spring water and kale leaves, vegetables and shit, I'd rather die a lot sooner and never be the oldest person and have eaten butter than have just grazed on grass and shit, and then the world's oldest person. Okay, let's talk about a couple of other things that are mildly interesting. Yes, journalistic failure. This is a big deal. This probably ought to go on Media Watch Wednesday, but it's there tomorrow. I think they're kind of releasing this, and it kind of started to come out tonight. You heard about the story. Rolling Stone posted it. What was it, in November, December or something last year, about the gang rape on the campus of some university by some fraternity. I don't remember which one. I think it was in Virginia, University of Virginia. I'm rapidly growing tired of fraternity bullshit. And I mean, I was never in a fraternity. I had sex with a lot of fraternity guys, but I never was in a fraternity myself. I was in the fraternity houses at times, but I did not belong myself. to a fraternity. Let's check out this story from the BBC and stop talking about me and my sexual exploits of the past. Stupid, right? So Rolling Stone is actually retracting an article they stood by for a while. This is pretty scary when they fuck up this bad, because they did fuck up pretty bad. They've apologized and officially retracted. I noticed things like the British spelling of apologize with the S instead of the Z, and it makes my brain get distracted. But this is from the BBC, so I'm trying to stay on task here. Rolling Stone has apologized, retracted the article about rape on the campus of the U.S. University. Managing editor Will Dana apologized to readers and all of those damaged by their story and the ensuing fallout. It was November 2014, the article was published, that described the gang rape at University of Virginia frat house in 2012. A 4-month police investigation found no evidence that the incident occurred. Police chief also said that didn't mean something terrible didn't happen to the student, known only as Jackie. But the journalistic failure is kind of the real headline, pardon the pun. The Columbia School of Journalism report commissioned by Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone themselves are the ones who commissioned this report by Columbia J School, describing the article as a story of journalistic failure. This is going to be right up there with the reporters that uncovered the what am I trying to say? The Watergate thing, the Nixon era. Sabrina Erdley was the journalist. 9,000-word article she wrote, a rape on campus, relied on Jackie as the sole source. There's your first red flag. One source only of information. And then subsequent investigations by other reporters and Erdley herself identified errors in the reporting of the piece. Columbia J School says that the magazine failed to use basic, even routine journalistic practices to verify the details after Erdley failed to contact the alleged attackers. The failure encompassed reporting, editing, editorial supervision, and fact-checking, and there were systematic failures at Rolling Stone. I mean, here's the thing. It's Rolling Stone magazine, right? You think of them as talking about the latest music. I mean, that's certainly what Rolling Stone has done. But they kind of, as far as like the 90s and stuff, we're doing kind of more wider cultural things than just music. For instance, I remember the Seinfeld gang being on the cover of Rolling Stone. So then they were branching into other areas of entertainment, but still, mostly Rolling Stone for journalism. And I don't remember at what point that shift happened, but it's like they're trying to be up there with Vanity Fair and Esquire magazine and kind of doing in-depth, longer lead pieces than you find in the newspaper. Certainly longer than you see on any TV stories, with the possible exception of like 60 Minutes, that kind of thing. If you're the kind of person who dismisses all news media as bullshit, there ain't nothing I can tell you. That's not the case. That is not true, that all news media is bullshit. Everything needs to be taken with a grain of salt. You need to consider the source, on and on and on, blah, 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 blah. Let's kind of keep looking at this, because I skipped away from this before I really got everything I wanted to get out of the BBC piece here. The report from Columbia Journalism School went on to suggest the article had undermined work to stop sexual violence, as it spread the idea that many women invent rape allegations. So there's that. Mr. Dana, the editor, described the report as painful reading and said the magazine was committing itself to a series of recommendations in the report. I don't know if it says those recommendations are here or not. It saddened us to think that their willingness to do so. Oh, wait. I missed this line. Sexual assault is a serious problem on college campuses, and it's important that rape victims feel comfortable stepping forward. It saddens us to think that their willingness to do so might be diminished by our failings. So yeah, that's something to think about, right? A bad journalistic story from again, I would not consider Rolling Stone magazine as the top 5 or maybe even in the top 10 of journalistic outlets. Trying to think if I had to do a top 10 journalistic outlets thing, top 10, believable, relevant, interest. I mean, you could put C-SPAN up there as a journalistic outlet, right? But it's not interesting. It's so goddamn boring most of the time that you get the idea. It wouldn't be in anybody's real top 5, I think. The reporter, by the way, also apologized in a statement released alongside the report. I hope my mistakes in reporting this story don't silence the voices of victims that need to be heard. And Jackie declined to answer questions, saying that it's in her best. Even her own friends, I think, were doubting details of her story. I know cops who are on the university level, and they talk a lot about girls who get drunk engage in sexual activity, and then, you know, there's kind of I don't want to say there's a gray area when it comes to rape, but there kind of is, because if you're drunk but not unconscious, some women cry rape at that. If you're unconscious and someone has sex with you, I think that's pretty clearly rape. But, you know, to have accused a fraternity group of guys at a party when there was no party at that house on the night in question, kind of a thing, stuff starts to unravel. And that's what happened in this case. And, you know, frankly, it's shit like that gives all of the other journalists a bad fucking name, and, you know, undermines not only the veracity of people who say, excuse me, I was raped, someone had sex with me without my consent, and that's fucked up, and that needs to be prosecuted, right? That undermines the people who are true victims of rape, and it undermines journalists kind of as a whole, because people have to, on the other hand, maybe it's a wake-up call. People need to make sure they don't believe anything they read. Oh God, I almost forgot to even bring up this story. Okay, here's something else about journalism. Believe in everything you read. Germanwings airplane crash, right? Suicidal co-pilot, left alone in the cockpit, locks the door, crashes the plane. And we start hearing all these, you know, things about him in the past. He had a torn up note that he shouldn't go to work for medical reasons, had a history of suicidal ideation, blah, blah, blah. Some fucking Tea Party, I think the website was even tpnn.com, Tea Party News Network. Not a reliable journalism site, right? Not a reliable news site at all. It's a reliable journalism site in the way the Inquirer is. Even the Inquirer has certain journalistic credibility in more recent days and years. If you really have watched that, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to delve into that here, but to you know, the Tea Party News Network is something you don't even want to wipe your ass with, because you will get ass cancer. That shit is bullshit. But here's what they were claiming. Based on other things, I think what they were referencing as a source was a Facebook group created after the plane crash and after the death of all these people, that the guy who crashed the plane, the suicidal co-pilot, had converted to Islam and was a Muslim and was trying to kill people 9/11 style. All right. When I first heard that, bells and whistles went off in my brain. That is fucking bullshit. And I became angry, and I almost, you know, probably became angrier than I was. That is bullshit. This is a guy who is clearly suicidal in the regular suicidal way, not in the Allah Akbar, I'm going to kill myself so people will switch to Islam, or whatever that boggled, mind-bending logic must be. Like, you know, I don't even wrap my brain around when people look at those ISIS videos and go, yes, finally, somebody's speaking to me. Somebody's scratching me where I itch. You know, do you look at that shit? It's like, what kind of fucking mental retardation has to be at work for somebody to buy into that at all, right? I mean, in a million ways, whether you're talking about, you know, throwing gay people off buildings, or not letting girls go to school, or, you know, raping women and beating women and calling it just marriage. You know, I mean, there's a lot that goes on in many of the Middle Eastern countries, that sort of cultural thing. And then you take that ISIS level shit, which, you know, is even, you know, ISIS is to Islam like the KKK is to Christianity. Now, I'm not, if you want to talk about all religious people being stupid, I'm absolutely on board with that. I don't care what religion you are. If you actually believe in an invisible man in the sky or whatever the hell, you're mentally ill. You're believing in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, in my estimation. In my personal, ridiculous, and unimportant estimation, you're mentally ill if you're religious. But that said, I don't think one religion is really much more sick than the other religions. I mean, I feel like it's all kind of bullshit equally. And, you know, to seriously believe that in any, I mean, people of faith, in a way, I wish I could sign up. In a way, I wish I could be that stupid and easily gulled, and to the point where, you know, it gives me comfort to know that there's a God in the sky externally controlling my destiny, or whatever the hell. I mean, I find it ludicrous, even so foreign to me that I can't even really say it clearly. But when you want to talk about why the Germanwings pilot did it, I think already there's sufficient information. And there's so little information. The black boxes are fucked up. You know, people, they've collected video, or they've collected cell phones. Some people say there's video from some of these cell phones that are smashed beyond recognition. And, you know, the evidence they have already, as scant as it is, indicates that this guy was suicidal, fucked up in the head. You know, there was a systemic problem as far as Germanwings and Lufthansa Airlines, because they didn't have the two-person at all times in the cockpit rule, which is a goddamn important rule to have when you have reinforced cockpit doors that can't be smashed in by even a legitimate pilot trying to legitimately regain legitimate control of the aircraft. But yeah, and so I had to slam somebody down last week going, that is bullshit. That I saw it on a news site, they claimed, but I don't remember which news site it was. Okay, I went on Snopes, and then I found other places to kind of back it up. I'm like, you did not see that on a news site. You saw that on tpnn.com, and for you to believe anything on tpnn.com, what do you also believe? Like Marmaduke is a real creature? I mean, do you believe everything you fucking read? Like, that is sad to the point of embarrassing. And, that shit like that makes me mad. On the other hand, it is journalistic failures like Rolling Stone and what they did with this rape story that undermine legitimate news agencies. Because now people, how do you know what to believe exactly? I think it's pretty clear for most people most of the time to know what to believe and what not to believe. Which sources are legit for the most part and which ones are not. And again, nobody's legit 100% of the time. Nobody gets a perfect 100% of the time. I think John Oliver is as close to perfect as it's going to get, though, because John Oliver is, again, it's not just satire. It's brilliant for one specific reason, I think, and it is that it is digestible, right? You can understand what he's talking about, and it's relevant to your life right now, and it draws it into stark relief, stark clarity and focus, and you're like, oh my God, they're going to re-up this Patriot Act in June 1st, or, that's the deadline by which they have to do it. And if you don't think the Congress and the Senate are going to do it, I don't know. I mean, I got a lovely iceberg out back in the Arizona desert that I would like to sell you, I guess. But seriously, if John Oliver, in that very specific and unique way, and that's the other thing, completely unique in the face of everything else, sort of like Jon Stewart in a way, but not really, sort of like Stephen Colbert in a way, but not really, like he stands on his own, and rightfully so, because it's brilliant and it's funny and it's awesome and it's journalistic, and I've gone on and on about that. All right. On and on and on. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to fill an hour tonight or not, but I feel like, here's what we'll stop. Let's do the Max Headroom thing, because I'm going to get creeped out a little bit. Okay. 1987. You may be familiar with WGN. WGN is a channel on television. It's a local broadcast station in Chicago, Illinois, in the U.S., and it is also what they used to call a superstation. I don't think they really call it that anymore. What a superstation was in the old days of cable casting, I almost said cable broadcasting, which is probably just as good, a station from a specific city, usually a big city, that was through cable systems distributed nationwide. So we are all familiar with the superstation WTBS from Atlanta. In fact, just for shits and giggles, before I go on, I'm going to play one of my favorite online... Oh, man, my keyboard's going to take a shit here, and it's not going to let me type. Well, maybe it will. Oh, no. Google Chrome is going to fuck up to the point where I can't even... Oh, man, that sucks, because now... All right, let me switch to the screen here for a second. We'll get back to the Superstation thing. I kind of wanted to bring to you Superstation WTBS, Atlanta's... Alrighty, if you are with me still, thank you for hanging on. That was a crash of the Google software, and I really apologize. You could see shit circling the drain, I think, at the beginning there. to the point where it was going to crash. But thank you for staying with me. Hopefully everything is. I've lost the text. Fuck the text. We'll just leave the on-screen graphics off for right now. All right. Chicago, Illinois. Broadcasting television in the olden days. I was talking about superstations, and what I was going to do, and I still want to do it, which is why this is kind of an important thing to me. I wanted to go to youtube.com and show you the logo, just because everything from the music to the really, I was going to say animation. It's not even animation in the way we think of animation today. Superstation ident. That's the key word to type in ID. There it is. God damn, if I didn't find it on the first try. Okay, let me switch to it here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's so good and classic and old school. Like, I just eat this shit up with a soup ladle, as I've often said. All right, here is the page I have brought up. Here is the logo. From 1980, this is. It's only 11 seconds, and look, the producer, J.C. Burns, the voiceover, Bill Tullis is the name of this guy. Here we go. Listen, and it goes by fast.
From Turner Broadcasting System, you're watching Superstation WTBS, Atlanta.
I eat that up with a soup ladle just because, I mean, the voiceover, the music, everything. Watch it again. From Turner Broadcasting System, you're watching Superstation WTBS, Atlanta. All right. Why do I get such a hard-on from that? I can't explain it to you, but except that, it's so classic. It is 1980, and it brings it back to me because in 1980, to receive a station from Atlanta in, say, Tucson, Arizona, where I grew up, is like, mind-boggling. You're used to broadcasting from local broadcasters in your local area kind of a thing, and, that's really great. But superstations from WTBS Atlanta, I believe one of the other regular ones was WOR from New York. And then the one for Chicago was WGN, right? Okay, so WGN did a newscast that was on at 9 p.m. And about halfway through the newscast in the 9:30-ish time, somebody hijacked their signal by using that studio to transmitter link I talked about before. And you don't have to really obscure it. You either have to get closer to the transmitter than the WGN transmission is, or you have to sort of increase the power. You have to be stronger than the WGN signal, and not by a lot. If it's like, let's say 5 watts from WGN, if you go up to, I think, 5.5 watts or something like that, you can obscure the signal in the old analog broadcasting days. So what they did was, you see this really creepy video of Max Headroom, a guy in a weird-ass rubber Max Headroom mask with this creepy-ass grin and his sunglasses. And the great thing was, if you remember Max Headroom, it had the computer digital kind of cube background kind of rotating behind him. Of course, Trekkies know Max Headroom was Matt Frewer, the guy who played that time-traveling professor from that one TNG episode. That guy was Max Headroom. If you were a Trekkie and somehow didn't know that, then I'm revoking your Trekkie card. Okay, let me find the WGN hijack, because it was short and it was kooky because there was no sound. That was the other thing. It's not clear if okay, here we go. This is the short one from 11/22/87. Let me switch over to my YouTube screen here so you can see what I'm seeing. And this is what they saw. All it is, WGN channel 9, and it went black. These numbers were kind of on the videotape that taped this, but it went to black, and then what you see is this. And all you hear is that kind of wah-wah sound. The background was provided by like corrugated metal roofing. And then...
Well, if you're wondering what happened, so am I.
Okay, so that's what happened. Hold on, let me go back to that. All right. If you're wondering what's happened just now, so am I. The sportscaster who was live on the air on WGN actually was like, what, he's looking at the monitor going, I was on TV 5 seconds ago doing sports, and now like Max Headroom is, doing the Max Headroom motion, but there's no sound. All you hear is, kind of that. It's a, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a side effect of certain video. When lines are on the screen in a certain way in the old analog days, it created this kind of after effect or side effect or artifact is the word I was looking for. But they had no sound. And what the WGN producers did, they were on the fucking ball. They switched to frequency on their studio to transmitter link both the frequency they were transmitting on and the frequency the STL was receiving, to the point where all of a sudden it brought Max Headroom off the air and brought their signal back. 2 hours later, it happened on the PBS station. Now, I think in Chicago, like in many places, broadcast facilities often use the same transmitter site because it's usually the highest place. I forget the name of the highest building in Chicago. It's not the Chrysler Building, is it? Maybe. I don't know. John Hancock Tower or something like that. It's not important. In Southern Arizona, it was Mount Bigelow. I think in New York City in the 80s, it was the World Trade Center. Many stations had transmitters on top of the World Trade Center. I don't know about many stations, but more than one. Anyway, so 2 hours later, using the same technology, and I think this was a tape. The Max Headroom thing you saw was not live. There was not a guy in front of a camera hitting a switch and going on live. This was some kind of weird taped thing. And this is where it got fucking creepy. Okay, this is where it creeps me out. I think partially because I saw it on Unsolved Mysteries in the 80s as a kid, and everything about Unsolved Mysteries, if you're a teenager or a younger kid, was creepy as fuck. Like the music and Robert Stack and sort of everything, the way they produced it. All right, WTTW was the PBS station. I think still is, the PBS station in Chicago. They were playing Doctor Who, okay? Now, you have to realize in the 80s, Doctor Who was not what it was today. It was not highly popular and, everywhere on the internet, partially because there was no internet. It was something nerds watched on PBS on Saturday nights because they weren't interested in Saturday Night Live and they weren't going out, kind of a thing. But somehow they got video and audio. And I don't even think it was the same part of the video. They took over that station and for 90 seconds hijacked the Doctor Who broadcast with not only audio of words being spoken. Now, you don't see the mouth move because, again, that's a rubber mask, right? But they had this kind of weird processing wah-wah effect. So even the words that they said, screaming and hooting and hollering and yee, it was all wah-wah. It was, anybody watching on LSD might have jumped out their fucking window because it's creepy as hell if you're straight, if you're sober. Straight. All right, whatever. Let's watch the WTTW hijack because this is where it gets kooky and weird. And this one actually has subtitles. So maybe, and I'm not sure the subtitles are 100% accurate, but it's close enough. And you'll get a taste. Maybe you've seen this before, maybe you haven't. But even if you have seen it before, it creeps me out every single time I watch it. WTTW, here we go. November 22nd, 87. Here's the words. During an 87 broadcast of Doctor Who, a mysterious person wearing a Max Headroom mask broke in. Back to me for a second, because the other thing I need to make sure I mention, mild nudity. Yes, we see a guy's butt cheeks and some female or person in a maid costume, I think it's a girl, using a fly swatter to smack him on the ass. There's also mention of a dildo. The guy does a middle finger to the screen or something like that, and apparently it's some kind of phallus. That, to me, is not very, very, very clear. Enough people have said it to the point where I think it's probably the case. I was just never able. Here's the thing. It creeps me out so much kind of from the get-go that details like that are not important or relevant to my brain. Let's watch the thing now. I'm going to do it as few verbal. I'm just going to try and not talk. Heavily distorted. Yeah, people cannot make out what he's saying, but this uploader on YouTube did it. Okay, here's the Doctor Who part, right?
Look after them with the old ones of your tribe. That is the only way to learn.
Okay.
Something like that.
Oh, God, this creeps me out. All right. Okay, here's the spanking part. And we're clear, as they say in the broadcasting industry. Back to Doctor Who. Think about if you were watching Doctor Who and you saw that on a Saturday night. I think it was a Saturday night, wasn't it? I've forgotten already. 11, yeah, late November evening is all it says. I'm pretty sure it was, but yeah, I looking at the comments on the YouTube video, like some people say they're hilarious. They're probably high as fuck, but so many people find it uncomfortable, scary, and creeped out that I know I'm not alone, at least. But like, okay, I mean, you know, Max Headroom was not that creepy. Max Headroom was doing commercials at that time for, was it Coke or Pepsi? I forget. Catch the Wave. I think it was Coke, the new Coke, right? That was the era of new Coke. And so Catch the Wave was kind of the slogan they would use. And it's like, oh, God. Okay, so he picks up a can of, like, Pepsi and throws it. Oh, Jesus, or whatever. And then my brother had, like, it's incomprehensible. And part of that is the mystery of that makes it creepier. But the craziest part was, and I was reading about this very long article. I probably should pull that up, but I mean, I just would rather talk about it. I'm not even sure at the time certain things like video hijacking were against FCC regulations, like, because it was unheard of. It had never happened before. It happened one other time with a satellite. It happened one other time before. HBO got interrupted by just a test pattern, just color bars. And what it said was like, "Good evening, America," from Captain Midnight, $12.99/month question mark, no way, ha ha, or something like that. Like, it was, God, I think I'm getting a cold. Sorry if I keep wiping my nose, my apologies. But so somebody hijacked HBO's signal. But again, that's satellite hijacking and not broadcast television hijacking. And again, sometimes those differences are apparent to me and important to me and not other people. But the fact that this was a broadcast TV station, 2 broadcast TV stations, again, the technology is the same whether you're, you know, hijacking the PBS station or the WGN station. The technology is the same. But that's the thing about the technology. It's not widely available to regular people. And even when it is available to regular people, it's expensive as fuck. Like, that stuff was not cheap to be able to do. Some people suggested an inside job, but it was pretty clear from the get-go that that was not an inside job from WGN or WTTW. Like, they investigated. The FBI and FCC and all those other people, like, investigated, looking into it, and it was on the news and shit. Like, it was not like a secret kind of covered up story. This was kind of covered journalistically and by the government as best they were able to, but there's no way to trace a broadcast hijack of that type. Certainly not back then. And, you know, if you were on a high enough apartment building, like I say, that was recording, what you saw was probably not live. So it was probably that they had this tape that they had made, this creepy ass weird tape of the Max Headroom thing. I do think, and the article pointed this out, the background was a very efficient and cheap way of simulating the background on the regular Max Headroom thing. And that kind of, like I said, it was a cube-shaped room that rotated. And this wasn't quite the same as that, but it did a good job for, what, 50 cents probably that had to cost, right? If it cost anything. They probably just tore it off of a roof or something that they had, or just saw it in a garage sitting around. Put it on some kind of swivel so that it could rotate, and then just kind of stand there going, I mean, I don't know what Clutch Cargo is. I think Clutch Cargo was a 1950s cartoon. In fact, I know it was because I saw this article, which I was not familiar with it before, and I would not have known that that was the theme to Clutch Cargo he was humming. Except I do remember reading the detail that WGN like reran that cartoon late at night, some nights. I don't know why that's important. The other thing that was kind of relevant was that he talked about the greatest world newspaper nerds. He messed it up, but world's greatest newspaper is what WGN stood for, because WGN was owned by Tribune, and the Chicago Tribune was what they called the world's greatest newspaper. So it was kind of an indirect poke at that. Chuck Swirsky, the name that he mentioned, was a sportscaster at WGN who worked for Tribune, but he was not the guy that was interrupted, that we saw come back on screen going, "If you're wondering what just happened, so am I. Back to the sports anyway." And, you know, I mean, that was not Chuck Swirsky. Chuck Swirsky I want to say was on like the weeknights, Monday through Friday, and this is a Saturday night. So the guy that was on was like not Chuck Swirsky. So I mean, he was poking at certain things about WGN. Maybe it was like a former employee. The article I read has a couple of theories as to like people who might have done it. Of course, in the 80s, hackers existed in a way, but it did not exist the way we think of it today. Not Johnny Lee Miller and Angelina Joe Lips in the Hackers movie kind of thing, even though that was only 7 years later, that movie. But you know, the internet happened after that. This was the era of BBSs and dial-up modems, and if you had computer access at all, you're talking about 2400 BPS kind of shit, and like 2600 magazine, if you remember, like that. You know, that was the only way certain people had the ability to kind of connect in some real fashion. So it just creeps me out. And I was home alone by myself, and sort of like on a Friday night, I was getting creeped out anyway. And then I saw that go by on Twitter, and I'm like, oh shit, I remembered that. And I started thinking the Unsolved Mysteries music, and I started hearing Robert Stack's voice, and I'm like, yeah, turned on all the lights in the house, turned on Modern Family or Seinfeld or something funny, and just like tried to derail my mind from thinking about it. But I've been thinking about it since Friday night, and thought I would share the creepiness with you. I hope they find who did that someday, even if it's just for everybody's sort of satisfaction. Again, I don't think it's possible in this day and age to a very real degree, because digital technology is a lot more complicated. That was the funny thing, though. While the WGN engineers were able to switch the transmitter and switch the receiver to a new frequency within 10 seconds, like that guy didn't stay on long at all. Creepy as though it was in its shortness and lack of audio, that second one is off the charts motherfucking creepy because of the spanking and the weird audio fragments, or that kind of thing. And WTTW station, like, I mean, the word engineers gets thrown around a lot. I don't even, a typical PBS station will not have a broadcast engineer, the fix-it guy, the smart guy who repairs things and solders things and that kind of thing, is not going to be on duty at the PBS station at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday, okay? The most they're going to have in the 80s, and they would have had a person at what they call master control, literally hitting play on the tapes, and, then at the end of Doctor Who, playing the PBS ID, playing the local station ID, playing a promo for what's coming up that week on PBS, and then on to Austin City Limits or whatever the heck next show was going to be on the PBS station. All the person at master control of PBS could do was sit there and watch in horror as their station got hijacked. Maybe, by a certain point, I would have gotten on the phone to the boss, or somebody tried to make a call and be like, I don't know what's happening right now, but turn on channel 6 because holy shit, we're being completely taken over. And then 90 seconds later, it's over with, and they got left alone. And that thing's going to haunt me in my nightmares. I'm surprised it hasn't, but it probably will at some point. It's already time to stop. I try to only keep this to an hour, but that's the creepiness I wanted to bring to you on News Sunday. Some serious journalism talk, some fun journalism talk, and some creepy-ass Max Headroom impersonation, analog broadcast hijacking bullshit. If you want, you can always call me. 310-776-Coons is the phone number. At Sebastian Kuntz, SEBASTIAN. Coons, Kunz, like zebra, is the on Twitter. Just look me up, Google me, whatever the fuck. Send a comment if you want to comment on the video here. You can do that. And like I said, I'm going to be doing it from 10 to 11 p.m. Pacific, 0500 to 0600 GMT for the near future, trying to make myself have a slightly earlier bedtime and try and get up in the event that I become the teacher I'm hoping to become in a short amount of time here. I'll probably have to start getting up earlier. And I still want to be able to do this show. Thank you for joining me. It's now the end of my hour. Send me a message. We'll see you in the chat rooms. We'll see you in the broadcast analog hijacked blogosphere. You're watching cBas After Dark. Have a good night.